So, welcome to today's episode for Data and AI podcast. So, this is my second podcast with Epiphany, and I have been researching a lot about you and been studying your every socials, which is like LinkedIn, Instagram, and I came across that you are like founder of hobbyhub.live and you're working on that too. And you have been as an account director at Adobe and led a dynamic team in this sales. And you are originally belong from a place called Quebec in Canada. Is it true?
Yes,
You
yep.
originate.
So I was born in Quebec and moved to the States when I was really young. So I grew up in the US, but as of the last year and a half, I moved back to Canada.
Okay. And I have studied like you have done your graduation from Wisconsin, LA cross, and you have studied your psychology and the marketing from there. And like you also got an all-star Alice All-Star Award from the Adobe. And it was like
Oh
quite
yeah.
difficult to dig it up from my side, but I got to know that. And yep, you have been also mentoring new entrepreneurs and also giving some of the voices to the people. So how would
Yes.
you like to introduce yourself now?
Well, hi everyone. Appreciate, you bringing me on to the podcast, especially as the second guest. I would say that's such an honor, so I appreciate it. But hi everyone. My name is Epiphanie Belanger. And like Vave had mentioned, I was at Adobe for about 6 years after I graduated. Kind of worked my way up through the sales function, starting in sales development, then business development, then renewals and contracting. And then finally, my last role was as an account director. So essentially being the partnership lead between clients of ours and the Adobe team. So really just being that relationship, I guess, voice of reason. And as of the last month and a half, I have decided to take a complete different career switch, career change. And I started my own business called Hobbyhub. Essentially, it is a business that is twofold as of now. One, it's teaching workshops around Toronto to get people really interested into different creative hobbies. And then secondly, for those that might not live in Toronto or might prefer to do their hobbies from the comfort of their home. I also have project kits available as well so that people can create in whatever way that's most comfortable for them. So I guess that's a little bit of an overview there, but I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Epiphany. And I would like to start with like your name, and it is like quite interesting and unique. So
Thank you.
yep, in Epiphany in English that I know of, it usually means something of like revelation or a
Mhm.
moment of realization. So what would be your moment of realization when you think like you are going to be that like great
Oh my gosh, I
human
love
being
that. I
or
guess
star?
I hadn't thought about it in this context, but yes, it's so funny when people usually meet me, they're like, oh my gosh, your mom actually had an epiphany, or I just had an epiphany, right? So it's that typical little saying, but that's funny with the realization that, this is the direction I want to go with in my life. But I think really it just kind of struck me over this last year where I look at my partner and he's so excited to wake up every single day, every morning and get on his laptop and start working. And I mean, like, the man loves all things sports and he does that for a living. So for me, I think I just started to look at him and say, hey, maybe I can have some of that like extreme excitement for what I do, right? Like I absolutely loved my time at Adobe, but I don't necessarily think that it was my calling or it was my, the passion that I wanted to take into the rest of my life and take into the world. So I just decided, you know what? I'm super artsy. I love creative hobbies. I love bringing light and energy and fun and creativity to other people's life. So that was my awakening this year of let me do something with that. Let me teach people different hobbies and get people off their dang phones where I can.
Great. So like I'm guessing your like main motivation for like things that you do in your life is like because of your creative juices and you think like you want to do something more on that line.
Yeah.
So like
No,
if someone is starting as like a new their career and they are new to their spaces, so how would you recommend someone of like a 20-year-old to start their journey in this creative field and stand upon their feet?
definitely. I think, is your question focused on creativity, or is it more in the first, I guess, the first role in someone's career? Because I have answers for both, but I just want to make sure I'm answering your question.
You can answer both. Like first of all, we can think about as a career and
Yeah.
how they can like navigate their career. And second, also like they have to like keep it in a balance, right?
Yep.
They want like their career and their creative juices to be satisfied
Yes.
for.
I think in terms of career, my biggest advice to everyone is put your head down and do the grunt work. I think in any role, you just have to realize that you're coming in, you're probably going to be the lowest level out of everyone there. So just grind, do things that no one wants to do, and people will start to take notice. And I feel like that's what's helped me in every one of my roles in terms of keeping your creative juices alive while also maybe juggling your corporate job. I think that's something that I was a bit challenged with, where I felt like in my off time, I spent a lot of time on social media just to, kind of let my brain relax after a long day of work. But what I started to find was I needed to make time for my hobbies. So on the weekends, I had to specifically say, hey, I want to do a little bit more knitting this weekend, or I want to really structure in some time for me to read, because after I, kind of let my mind flow and kind of let myself be more creative, I always feel better afterwards. I don't feel good after I brain rot on Instagram for an hour. So I think it's just remembering that sometimes you have to schedule in these hobbies, which seems counterintuitive, but that's what's helped me.
Great. And how would you suggest like people go in for like their career and like how they can like manage the financial aspect of it also, like because it is also important.
Definitely. I think in terms of managing the finances of different hobbies, right? It can be hard to get in on a hobby and buy everything that you need. If you want to get into sewing, a sewing machine's pretty expensive, right? So it's almost
Yep.
like, how do you start at a very beginner level and then work your way into the hobby as you decide, hey, this is something that I want to invest into. So I think for me, whenever I decide, hey, I want to try something new, I usually get the cheapest materials that I can just to see if it's something that I'm interested in. And then let's take the sewing example. Let's say, oh, wow, I really love sewing. Rather than, I have this sewing machine that barely works that I got at a Value Village or a Goodwill. Maybe I'm going to trade it in and I'm going to buy and invest a little bit more money into um, a lightly used sewing machine or a new sewing machine. So I think it's once you've decided, yep, this is something I like, I want to invest in it, then you can kind of pick and choose where you spend your money. I think another little shameless plug for myself, that's the foundation of Hobbyhub, right? Is essentially letting people explore different hobbies without having to break the bank over it. I will go buy all of those big fancy materials so that you only need a slight portion of it to be able to explore it and see if it's something that you're interested in, right? So rather than buying all of the materials to say, ooh, wow, I actually really don't like crocheting, it's all good, right? Like next session, we're going to explore something different so that you can see if it's a hobby that you like.
Great. I was also exploring your website and I got to know like you make bath bombs and also the beads
Yeah.
for your like spectacles.
Yes. Yeah, there's lots of different hobbies and creative projects that we work on, but I like to kind of keep it some variety in there too. So my first workshop a couple weeks ago was a beaded sunglasses chain. Then we did some bath bombs like you'd mentioned. I also have a clay flower mirror session coming up, which, oh, look at that, I happen to have next to me. So we'll be making
So
this beautiful thing. Um, but I do like to have a wide variety of different creative projects so that people can find their niche, and it doesn't become monotonous, always doing beaded projects or always doing X kind of projects. What about you? I'm curious. You got any creative hobbies? I'm putting you on the spot.
Um, for like creative, I don't know if I'm such a creative person, but I like to like
Mhm.
explore like movies or like
Yeah.
series that's like doom scrolling on the Instagram. I like to like code stuff. I like
Mm,
some bit of coding there. And for like proper coding, like from the artsy point of view, like that you mentioned for like painting or like doing something on that artsy front, I was never great at that. For like art and crafts, I
yeah.
never like put so much of like emphasis on that part.
Yeah. But I think to your point, right? Like the videos and as you edit, this to put it up on YouTube and to put it up on different platforms, like that's an art in and of itself too. So I think that's what I really like about creativity and arts as a whole is that there's really something for everyone.
Yep, you can classify it as a
Yeah.
digital art, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yep. And if we dive deep into your corporate climb and how did you like whole of your Canadian journey, and that's the like main meat of this session, that how did you like start building your career as a Quebec native, and like what was that particular Canadian job market and how you can compare it to right now, and what is to be as an Adobe sales representative at that point, and how do you see it right now, what is the like financials of it, and how would you recommend someone in being in this particular sales field?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good questions in there in terms of how I got into the sales field. When I was in university, as you'd mentioned earlier, I double majored in marketing as well as psychology. And I'd always thought that I was going into marketing. I was the president of our American Marketing Association at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse. And I figured, hey, I think it's some crazy statistic like 70% of marketing majors end up going into sales. So I figured in case there was a member that was interested in sales, maybe I'll join the sales club just so I have some kind of understanding of what sales really is. And I went to a sales competition. Adobe had a booth. I dropped off my resume. And to your point, because I had Quebec listed or French speaking abilities listed on my resume, they ended up giving me a call and wanted to give me an interview because I spoke French. So it was interesting to Adobe in the time at least to have someone be able to speak French, be able to prospect in French, and really work within the Quebec market. So once I graduated, I packed all my stuff up from Wisconsin and I moved all the way up to Toronto to work on Toronto accounts as well as Quebec accounts to really try to break in both in English as well as in French. Um, and then I think just like I said before, kind of kept my head down, grinded, and made it to the account director role, where I worked with different accounts that didn't have any Adobe spend on the DX side, on the digital experience side. So to grow their footprint and their presence there. Um, I think in between my initial role and then my final role, I moved back to the US. I was in San Francisco and then I was in Denver. And then most recently, as I mentioned, a year and a half ago, I moved back to Toronto. So it was definitely a jump going from working on very, very large, like the biggest corporations in the US to moving to the Canadian market. I think just inherently, the US clients, I think, invest in much more technology. And perhaps they have sometimes a little bit bigger budgets as well compared to the Canadian market. And the Canadian market is really, really focused on partnership sales, right? So you have to have that deep connection, make sure that you have a crystal clear business case on why that organization should be investing in your product. So it's a lot of working hand in hand with your client to make it through to the sale. And then afterwards, it's really the continuation of the partnership and building the relationship as well as they onboard and implement the solution. So I think that's a major difference between the US and Canada is perhaps smaller budgets in Canada, um, as well as it being very relationship and partnership focused. So that was a bit of a change between the two careers there. I think in terms of the economic climate and the conversations being had between the US as well as Canada, um, I think it's a good time to be a small business owner, a Canadian small business owner, because it's so interesting. As you walk the streets in Canada, there's signs everywhere that say Canadian owned or buy Canadian products or buy local, right? So there's very much, as of this last year, a passion for Canadian products, a passion for investing in the Canadian market. Um, so that's something that I tried to bring to Hobbyhub as well, right? Because there is a sense of pride in being Canadian and in being in a smaller market to the US. So I think that's something that I definitely, it's a point of pride for me as well.
Great. I would have a follow-up on
Yeah.
if someone is just starting out and they don't know like what career path they need to choose or
Mm,
like what degree they need to choose to get into this like sales representative field
sure.
in the Adobe or any other big MNC. So
Yep.
how would they plan that and like how they need to like calculate their financials and how like which things they need to keep in mind while also performing this while selecting their degree and doing everything for that their deem role.
I think the best way that you can prep for a sales role is really just being a good conversationalist and being trustworthy. So it's interesting skills, right? Because it's soft skills that you need to learn before anything else. Like you can learn how to budget things out, you can learn how to price out products, you can learn negotiation, but at the core and at the root of it, you need to be trustworthy. You need to be able to build a relationship with someone. Um, and you need to be able to understand key business challenges. So my suggestions would be if you have a sales team at your university, I would say, you know what, join the sales club. You will do so many different role plays as if you are a salesperson and you're trying to sell something to a buyer. So repetition really is key there to go through and understand the sales process. I would also say that there's a lot of really great business books out there too, but really there's not, I don't know if this is the right thing you're supposed to say, but there's not that much prep that you can do before going into sales because it is such a learned skill over time. And yeah, I would say that sales really takes anyone from all different walks of life. I know some of my peers at Adobe were previously they were in the education field. Previously, they came from like physical therapy. So again, I go back to those core root skills that you need to have, and then you can kind of hone them from there. I
Great.
think what I also really liked about sales as a field too, one of our leaders always says, you know, you're the CEO of your business. So what I love about that is that the CEO oversees so many different functions, right? The chief financial officer, chief marketing officer, there's IT in there, right? There's HR. So you really have to have an understanding of all of these different functions within an organization to be able to push your business forward. So I think that's what I've really taken into my new venture here to say, okay, if I was the CEO of my own business at Adobe, now I am my CEO, my own CEO at Hobbyhub, and I've worked with CMOs, CFOs, CTOs, right? Like, so I've worked with these folks before, and I've been able to glean skills from them. I've been able to understand what's important to them so that I feel as though on a very, very small scale, I should be able to run this business, right? And to scale it up. So I think that's what I've really liked about sales. You get a little bit of a sense of what makes a company run from so many different vantage points.
Good. Uh, I have a serious question now.
Yeah,
Like this is a corporate job, and you are bound to have bad days in this corporate job.
yeah.
So, what were the struggles and the bad days, and what did you actually do to make that bad day into not much of a worst day, but into a best case scenario that you could have done with that bad day?
It's a really good question. And I think it's something that as salespeople, sometimes we try to cover up the fact that we have bad days. Also, because as a salesperson, you're always expected to be on, right? Like you are there for the client. You need to always be present, smiley, and you need to push it forward. So I think inherently we don't really talk about our struggles, but I definitely had a lot of anxiety as a sales rep. Um, there is the constant pressure of having a quota. So you have a number over your head, and I mean, each organization has a different pay breakdown, but essentially the root of a salesperson, right? You have your base pay and then you have your commission pay. So your outcome is really tied to like that your financial outcome and how much money you make is really tied to what you sell. So that's a lot of pressure as well too, right? So I think on my end, luckily I don't have children. I don't have a family that depends on me, but I still felt a lot of pressure just to make sure that I was okay and I was going to make ends meet, right? So um there's always that uncertainty with sales. Luckily, I mean, I always was okay, but um, that is definitely one of the considerations there. I think a lot of the times I would wake up and my heart would pound of, oh, geez, I have to get into the office. I have to start. And something that really worked to calm me down is just to flip a little bit like flip the anxiety on its head to say, okay, wait, but how lucky am I that I get to speak to this executive today? How lucky am I that I get to hear something new that I don't know how it works, right? Or if I'm going into a really tough meeting, how lucky am I that I'm going to find out what the root issue is? So I think I would always try to like flip my nerves and my anxiety and my stresses into something positive, and that kind of lessened the worries. I think it's also really helpful when you plan and when you practice. So, understanding at the start of your day, what do I need to get out of this day today? So, in just highlighting that and making sure that you work towards that one important thing, think that you can also apply that to specific meetings as well. So, if you have a very important meeting with an executive, a lot of the times I will highlight or circle what's the one big rock that we need to move during this meeting. And I would work towards that throughout the entire session and try not to get derailed from that. But um, after work as well, I think it's important to take some time to decompress. Sometimes I would go for a long walk, workout classes. So I think just really, you know, cushioning your life with things that make you happy, with ways to decompress. Um, that's usually what worked for me.
Good. Uh, Now, one of the things that I can get from you is that does the anxiety also played a part in starting your journey as a solo entrepreneur, because you wanted to feel like this there is something for you and it only belongs to you and you have total
Mm.
control over it?
You know what's interesting is I feel like I should say I'm nervous or I'm stressed. There's no part of me that feels anxious or nervous. I think a lot of my anxiety comes from the fact of I'm not sure how my leaders view me, or I'm not sure if I'm performing to the extent and kind of comparing myself to other people. The best thing about having your own business is I've no one to compare to. It's kind of like I wake up and I try to do as much as I can in a day's work. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's all I can do. I'm not really pitting myself against anyone else. I'm not comparing it against anything else either. So I think that's led to a little bit of my decrease in anxiety. And on the flip side as well, I think now that I've made the jump to following something that I'm really passionate about. Granted, I loved my clients, I loved my colleagues, right? But I think this is something that just I wake up and I mean, it's Sunday and I've been working on my business all day because I love it, right? So I think this was the right next move for me. So knowing that I took this big step, I have less anxiety because I know that it was the right direction to go. And if this doesn't work out, if let's say my business fails in 3 weeks, I have no idea. Let's just say it doesn't work out the way that I planned. That's okay. I'll pivot and I'll do something different. I've taken a huge, massive step, and that's probably going to be the biggest step that I would have had to take. So now any other step will be much smaller.
True, like most of the people can't even think of leaving a stable job and starting their own company or a firm. And you
Yeah.
have taken that big step, big
Yeah.
leap of faith.
It is a big leap of faith, but I think I just have the knowledge that it will work out. If I need to take a coffee shop job, I'll take a coffee shop job. If I have to, you know, if I have to dog sit, I'll dog sit. But I think I've just decided that I'm going to do anything that I can to have the best, I guess, like work life that I can. So I think that was a conscious decision that I made. But you're right. I think to that point, not everyone should just leave their job, right? You need to make sure that you prep and you plan and you don't just wake up one day and say, screw it. Epiphany did it. I can do it, right? I think what I haven't yet said is that there was a lot of planning and a lot of thought that went into this. So I've really started Hobbyhub earlier this year. It's probably going on like 6 months, 9 months that I've led workshops on weekends and on weeknights after work too. So I had done a lot of prep and planning after my, my day job to be able to execute on these workshops. But it just got to a point where if I was here at Adobe, this was starting to ramp up. And to go any higher, I would have to take from Adobe, which that wasn't fair, right? So I just made the decision, hey, I'll take a step and really invest in this and see how it works.
Great. Like if someone also asks me, like, do they need to like stop their job and work on their side hustle? I would say them and suggest them that be a Batman. Like do
Yeah,
your work in your day job and then in the nights do your thing, like whatever side hustle you want to choose.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I think you have to do you have to do the grind of doing both before you can start to make the jump towards your passion. And that's the best thing financially too, right? You don't want to start a business with with no clients yet, right? Or not being sure the direction that you're going, because then you're just going to spend so much time and potential money that you could have made, right? Like then you lose out on that. So I think you need to establish what you want to do, um, how you're going to do it, how you're going to make money, start to make some money, and then once you've hit the point where you need to start investing more, that's when you can make the jump.
Yep, definitely. It makes sense. And I know that you have talked a little bit about your hobby hub, your like company. So we
Yep,
can talk a bit more about like your AI and productivity and how we can like
perfect.
incorporate that. So
I
like
love it.
what do you think about AI and like changing landscape of like people losing jobs and they are like completely panicked in this like state. So how would you think like how would people in the creative fields or like non-creative fields could incorporate AI and increase their productivity?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, right? And a lot of questions that big organizations are thinking about, but also individuals are thinking about. I think we have to we can't be naive a bit about AI. Every job is replaceable. Like every single job is replaceable. I think we've kind of hit that point now. So it's about how can you differentiate yourself, right? So how do we lean in and leverage AI in a way that makes our work smoother, faster, better than before, maybe better than others is, um, because you have to keep up. Otherwise, who knows what'll happen in the future, right? So I think on my end, I've used AI a bit with Hobbyhub in terms of, well, first of all, I had to learn a whole bunch of different tools that I never know how to use before, right? I had to build a website. I had to, get very deep in the weeds with Microsoft and setting up my business accounts and whatnot. So, um, I used AI for the layout of my website and really just the idea generation, but understanding, hey, what does a successful website look like? What does okay, this is my target audience. Give me some typical wording for an intro on a website, right? So almost more like idea generation to get an understanding of um, what direction should I go in? And then from there, I tweak it. I add my own verbiage, how I would actually speak to someone to make it more me, but at least I don't have to go through as much trial and error and A B testing that could maybe, put me back a couple months.
Yep, great. And in the creative fields, I am also like discovering AI and thinking about this.
Yeah.
So like there are like many tools in which like you could also incorporate for the like creative peoples and expand just for like the non-tech people to like technical people also like
Yeah.
who wants to explore their creative side. So one of the website is like Firefly in the Adobe as well, which helps to create the images and the
Yeah.
videos. And then we have like a Gemini burst. Have you like used Gemini before or like right now for
It's
image
funny.
or video generation?
I haven't used Gemini, but I have used Firefly just for, again, like for idea generation. But I'm a big user of Adobe Express and I use it to fuel my business. Um, and there's some fields within within Express that leverage AI. So for example, like the resizing functionality, and then you can expand the background to it. There's like the generate similar feature essentially. um, I pick out an image that I want to use and then I can generate an image that's very similar, so I think that uses the Firefly capabilities there. um, but yeah, it's very good to just get a sense of the direction that I want to go in, and then if it's something that I like, great, I keep it, and if it's not, then at least I have some ideas of the direction that I can go into.
Yep, definitely. So like looking at like your life
Mhm.
from where you're standing right now. So what would you think like if you want to change something or have an epiphany right now on this podcast? So
Mhm.
what would you think that you could like change or like redo something in your life?
Mhm. I don't think I would redo anything because every decision that I've taken has led me to this point and everything has been a learning. So there's nothing that I would redo, but if I was to look into the future and what I wish I had an epiphany about. I think I need to have an epiphany on prioritization. Like I have a lot of things coming out with Hobbyhub. Again, this is Hobbyhub focused, but I have a lot of things coming out with Hobbyhub and I have a bit of a tough time knowing what's the priority and which opportunities should I put forward or maybe push off into the future. So I think I tend to go trial and error mode, but I think that's a way to get burnt out if I try to tackle everything. So I would like to have an epiphany to just immediately know what's worth my time and what's not. But I think that's just part of it, right? Like that's part of the failure piece.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have something you want to have an epiphany about?
Yep. Like I'm meeting with epiphany and I am having an epiphany of being a Batman like you, like
Yeah.
working on the day job and also working on the nights for my
Mhm.
creative juices.
I don't know if you feel this, but I felt it so draining sometimes to do the day job and then going into the night job. There was a part of me that started to resent a little bit of what I was doing as my creative outlet, as like the night job, I started to resent it a little bit, where I felt like, oh geez, I just wish I could lay on the couch and watch a movie, but I know that this is important. So I think that took a lot of digging and kind of soul searching to really think through and say, is this something that's worth my time? Am I just frustrated because I wish I could turn my brain off? Or am I frustrated because this isn't actually something that I want to invest more time and energy into? And I think it really was just, I wish I could turn my brain off. So from there, it was okay, maybe I only work on it once or twice a week, right? Rather than more often. But I guess I'm kind of curious, do you ever feel like a little bit of resentment or frustration with the day and night conundrum?
Like when I like to like code and
Mm,
like I'm building on some projects on like weekends or like on the night, I
yeah.
do some kind of feel like, why am I doing this job? It is not related to my field,
Yep.
and I want to do something more related to the AI and data science. I kind of
Mm,
feel it that. But still, like, you have to pay your bills and you
yeah,
have to do your day job.
that's true. Yeah, that's very true. I
Yep.
think I was kind of thinking back to the question that you had asked, right, about um, the ways that I use AI in my world, and I think I don't know if I did an adequate. I don't think if I adequately answered your question. So I had a couple examples that I had thought through of other ways that I've used AI, less about productivity, but more about just getting an understanding of how I could dive into different hobbies. So I just kind of wanted to share a few with you and maybe with some of the listeners, because I think um, it's a good way to try out different hobbies and see if it's something that you might be interested in a really low risk manner. But I absolutely love making sourdough. My mom gave me a starter about, geez, like 2 years ago. So every week to 2 weeks, you have to feed your starter. And essentially, you keep just a small portion of the starter and then you feed it. So you add in water and flour, um, and essentially like revive that small portion so that really, like, I mean, my starter is like years and years and years old, and you just keep feeding it. So I say that because what I've done in the past too is I've asked ChatGPT, I've asked AI, hey, I keep my house at this temperature. My fridge is set at this temperature. This is how I, feed my sourdough. This is how I go through the sourdough process. I want to have the most airy, like, I guess, biggest loaves as possible. Like, what tips would you say for me? So then AI kind of like scripted and tweaked some of my recipe, just understanding, the temperature that I keep my house at and how much that would affect or not affect the sourdough. So that was kind of cool, just to get a little bit of a tweaked into how to have the best bread in the world. But that's like one way that I've used AI. I've also it's funny, there's a few interesting creative apps out there too. I came across one that if you scan a specific sweater or little figurine made out of like knitting or made out of crochet, the AI will actually figure out what the pattern is so that you can create it on your own, which that I think is so cool, because sometimes you'll see someone wearing whatever, a sweater or a little tank top that looks so cool and it's clearly handmade, but you don't want to ask them how they've made it. So that was really interesting to be able to kind of have AI guess and gauge what the pattern is, what kind of yarn you should use, what size needles you should use, so that you can get the same look. So I think those are like the two main ways that I've used AI, especially as it relates to getting deeper into different hobbies.
If I would like to add onto your point for that
Yeah.
AI in the like texture or the like clothing. So I actually worked in a like clothing manufacturing company earlier, just before this
Oh,
Adobe,
okay.
and I
Yeah.
was working as an AI engineer there, which I was doing the same thing as like converting those patterns that customer have clicked and they
No
want that
way.
same pattern on their like clothes. So you could say it is kind of like copying the pattern, because like most of the brands, they have like patented patterns on them, so we
Yep.
cannot use the exact same, but we can use like subtle differences from here and there. Like we can add like letters here and there, and like
Yep.
show them that this is how you can like get this pattern on your like t-shirt or a shirt without
Yep.
paying the price of that patent.
So cool. Yeah, no, that, oh my God, that's, well, how funny that you've like worked in one of the companies that maybe I've used too. That's small world. I also think it's really interesting because sometimes I'll look at, like, for example, I made this sweater, but for example, if someone was to scan this sweater and they were curious on how I did like this part, it's kind of cool that they would be able to find out like a new knitting technique that maybe they didn't know before. So um I just think that that is really interesting too, of like getting, just wrapping your head around how something has been made, and then just adding that skill to your toolbox too.
Yep, definitely. Now, the main question.
Hmm.
So what do you think, like so give some like fitness or like some beauty tips that you might have, because I know like you are quite fit and you are quite beautiful. So for our audience, if you want to add something there.
Mm. I Mm, so I love working out. I love going to different types of workout classes. So I always plug ClassPass. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's essentially, instead of registering to a specific studio, you essentially are become a member of ClassPass, and ClassPass has relationships with different studios and different I guess, types of organizations, so that essentially you can take their classes without needing to be a member. So I love going to like Barry's hit workout classes. I love Pilates and yoga. Um, I think that is the main way that I like to stay active. I've also liked going for long walks in the past. I think that's like just the best way to clear your mind. So there's also like the mental health aspect of it, but then physically just getting out and getting some fresh air is always good too. Um, but yeah, and then I guess bath bombs. That's how I'm gonna wrap it up. Can also just do bath bombs and soak in the bath, and I think that's good for like more of the beauty side of it too. And if you want to
Yep,
know how to make bath bombs, you can check out my website.
yep, definitely. It is, by the way, if you are like listening and you want to know, it is hobbyhub.live. You can
Yes,
definitely check that
exactly.
out.
Perfect.
Perfect. Now, do you have like recently you have watched any movies or series that you want to recommend, and like your all-time favorites if you have?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think my all-time favorite artist is probably Moby. I love a couple of his albums. I just listened to them when I was younger, so that just definitely has a soft spot in my heart. In terms of movies, what have I seen lately? Mm, Oh, we're me and my partner are watching, I think it's called Fear Street. And as we're getting more, yeah, for Fear Street, there's like part
Oh,
one, part
yes.
two, part three.
Oh,
So we're getting a little bit deeper into those, especially as right now we're like middle of September, but we're kind of getting close to October. So I'm trying to do like a spooky movie every week where we can. I just think it's so interesting because I think they were filmed at the same time and released nearly at the same time too. So it's kind of cool that at the time people didn't have to wait for the sequel or the third movie. It was kind of like a bam, bam, bam type of thing. But I think that's the main ones that I'm getting into. What about you? Do you have any?
I have like I am a movie buff, so I
Yeah,
have watched mostly every movie. Like you can
nice.
name any, I have watched. Like I mostly like Christopher Nolan movies for like
Mm,
sci-fi and stuff. I like
nice.
Interstellar, Inception, Tenet. Yeah,
I
mostly
love
on
like
that.
the kind of the dystopian movies where it's like the same type of setup as our world right now, except something's a little bit different, right? So that I really like because it just feels like that might not be too far away from our future. So I always think that those are like the best mind-boggling type of movies. But yeah, I'm with you on sci-fi for sure.
Yep. And here we have some of the rapid fire casual questions with me.
Perfect.
So they are like kind of like 7 to 8 questions. So if you could like answer under like 30 seconds for each
Sure.
question. So what is your favorite AI tool that you have tried for fun and not for work?
mm, ChatGPT. I think that's the classic.
And what have you done like for the fun activity there? Like just for the images?
I think it's just asking it questions in terms of my audience. Oh, geez, you said not for work. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's asking it about my hobbies and how I could refine it, but I definitely use it for work. So I'm sorry I didn't answer your question properly. But
No worries. And if there is an AI that could instantly master any hobby for you, so which one would it be?
painting, I feel like that's the one hobby that I'm not too good at. Everything else is kind of up for interpretation, but painting, I kind of feel like you're either good or you're not good, and I think I'm not good.
And what's one mundane task that you feel right now in your current job that it could just like poof, like it just goes away from your life?
Um, this is more of like a silly answer, but I have like a little shelf that I keep all of my insane craft supplies in, and it's way too small for what I need. And I just wish, I feel like I'm reorganizing it every 2 days, and I hate reorganizing it. So if AI could somehow tell me the best way to organize my craft closet and what I need to get rid of that's not worth my time, I'm sure AI can do that, but that is definitely what I wish.
Yep. So you can definitely like you can use the Gemini app and like show like from your camera and show like what changes that I could make in my cupboard.
Sure.
So it could optimize that for you. Like Gemini is kind of like changed the whole scene in the
Mm.
image and video generation.
I'll
So I'm
definitely
kind
check it out because, yeah, as I said it out loud, I'm like, oh, I guess I could use AI for that.
yep. And if you are working on any brainstorming ideas, so like while drinking your coffee or tea, so what would be like your new workshop idea with or without the AI?
Hmm. I love junk journaling. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but essentially it's like keeping receipts, keeping wrappers of your everyday life, and then almost doing like a scrapbooking. But I think the difference between junk journaling and scrapbooking is that scrapbooking is, I think typically it's just more put together, more beautiful looking. And junk journaling is almost like it sounds, you're junk, right? And you're like piecing it all together with a bunch of different funky backgrounds. So that's one workshop that I'm thinking of. I would also love to make a paper making workshop. So with different dried flowers and leveraging some recycled materials and just making our own paper. And just think that would be kind of like a fun, sustainable workshop that we could do.
Definitely. I think you have already answered this question, but let me ask again, like
Yep.
what was the best part of being your own boss versus working at a big company?
I think the best part of being my own boss is having total freedom on deciding how I want to spend my day and what I want to invest my time in. Because, and that's a double edged sword. I could spend way too long on something that's not going to be that beneficial for me, but I get to make that mistake wholly on my own. So I love that feeling that it's 100% on me versus at a larger company. I think, there's more cooks in the kitchen and the goal is getting to results as fast as possible, which makes sense, of course. I think I have a little bit of the luxury now where I get to take my time and I get to make mistakes and I get to screw up and learn in whatever time frame that makes sense for me. So I think that's a little bit of a luxury that I've liked being my own boss.
Great. And like if you want to promote your hobby hub, so what would platform would you choose more, like Instagram or TikTok? And how would you like start your marketing there?
Definitely Instagram. So I have an active Instagram presence as well as TikTok. I typically actually make most of my videos on Instagram. So I use the Reels functionality um, and create my content there. But yeah, I think TikTok, to be honest, TikTok kind of confuses me in some areas. It's so different from Instagram, and maybe that's kind of showing my age a little bit that I'm not hip and up to date on how to make TikToks as much. But yeah, I'm definitely an Instagram girl. So if anyone wants to follow, it's hobbyhub.life. And I try to post every couple days on different workshops or asking questions of my followers, trying to kind of just show my life as a small business owner.
And if there would be like one piece of tech that you can't live without in your business or in as a like day-to-day life, what would that be?
Hmm. In my business, um, I love the iPad Magic Keyboard because I think the iPad is so easy and so light to carry around. And then the Magic Keyboard is perfect. Like it just pairs so nicely with it, and I can just turn it into a laptop anywhere that I go. So that's the corporate space. And then in my everyday life, something that I can't live without. Oh my gosh. I love my day bed. I recently we got rid of all of our couches and now we just have a day bed instead, which is essentially like a bed with three sides. So we just lean up against the back of the day bed and just watch movies from there. And it is the most comfortable thing. So definitely can't live without the day bed. It's like it's been a weird, great addition to my house. I just always feel
And
like on couches, like it's not big enough, or if you want to curl your legs in, like you don't have the space to. So people, try a day bed. It'll change your life.
great. And if I have like one last rapid fire question is that
Yep.
if your hobbies were an AI algorithm, so what would its like objective function would be? Like how would you
Oh, wow.
program your hobbies as an AI algorithm?
Can you give me an example? I'm sorry. I need an example because I want to make sure that I answer it right.
So AI algorithm could be like in the form of like text, it could be like images, videos, or like anything which is related to like AI related thing. And what would be like main functionality for your for your hobbies there?
Mm, uh-oh, I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but I think the vibe would be like big curvy letters and um, lots of swirls and kind of more hip patterns. And I think just a lot of just fun and community and meeting people. Am I answering your question correctly? I don't know
Like
if I am.
there is no wrong answer in there. Like it could be anything. So
Okay. I think it's really just all about having it be light and airy and fun and bubbly and just letting out your personality.
great. And one last segment that I want to touch
Sure.
upon is that you have like done the hard work of starting your business and you're growing that business. So what's the next step for you? Like what are you planning next in your life to grow
Mm.
and to learn?
I think the next step in my life is to continue to grow my friendships and my relationships because I think I just moved to Canada, as I mentioned, about a year and a half ago. So for me, it's really about investing in my friendships and in my relationships. I luckily have a good girl group going on in Canada. But I think just making sure that I deepen those friendships and those relationships, um, because I plan to be in Canada for a while. So I think it's time to, kind of take those relationships to the next level and really make sure that I have some lifelong friends.
Yep, definitely. Like friends and family are like most important part of our
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
Like if there are like three pillars of life, one would be like your health, second would be your like financials, your money, and third would be your friends and the family.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as long as those pillars, they don't have to be equal 100%, but as long as they're fairly stable across, then I think you're set up pretty well.
Definitely. And like one piece of like motivation, like quote or anything that you follow that you want to provide the audience so that they can be motivated in their daily life and grow more and learn more.
I think it's really just all about going for it. Life is keeps ticking by. Every second that you watch this video is a second that you can't take back, right? As soon as this video ends, how are we going to spend the next 10 seconds, right? So there's no, you can't go backwards. So how are you going to conquer the next 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 years, and really build something that you're happy with? So I think at the end of the day, I just think of, okay, well, once I get old and I look back on my life, will I be happy? And I think that's really where the root of everything is, right? You just want to make sure that you're living the life that you want to live and not living for someone else. So if there's a scary decision that you want to take and you want to make, plan it out and go for it. If anyone wants to reach out to me to talk a little bit more, I'm happy to kind of walk through my own journey going through it a bit more too. But I just think life's too short to waste time.
Definitely. And before like ending this, any piece of advice that you would have for me for improving this podcast and growing this more to reach more audience?
No, I think honestly, I think this is great that I mean, of course you're more in the data science field. I was more on the sales side and now I'm more in the artsy fartsy space, right? But I love that you're bringing on all different types of guests, and kind of getting their thoughts and feelings on AI in the data space. I think that's exactly what we should be doing. So I think great work and kudos to you for going for it.
Thank you. And definitely this is not like one of the last podcast with you. There would be like more coming and we will talk about more on the AI part and
Yep.
see like how we can include AI in a creative field also because I'm working in AI. I think people uh, who are into AI, they should also have like hobby or like learning into the AI as a creative field.
Yep. No, 100%. I would look forward to it.
Yep. So I have given the intro for our next podcast, which is like
Love
AI
it.
into the creative field.
That's perfect.
Perfect. Anything else that you want to add or any ending notes?
I think on my end, I appreciate the opportunity for being able to come on your podcast and to chat with your audience as well. But yeah, I think time's a ticking, folks. Make the changes in your life that you want. Go for it.
Yep. And I have also have to thank you for coming onto this podcast because you are only my second guest and like I would really appreciate this.
Of
So
course.
thank you so much. And we are ending on the correct time, I think. Exactly
Yeah,
one
look at
hour.
that. Exactly 1 hour. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you everyone listening to this podcast. And you can definitely follow Epiphany on hobbyhub.live, her website, and her Instagram channel as well, Hobbyhub. Thank
Perfect.
you.
See you then.
See you. Bye bye.